Hey folks, welcome back to the channel. In today's story, Opie found out his spouse cheated on him with her manager after he found texts on her phone that described them doing some interesting things in a Walmart parking lot. In today's second story, Opie found out his girlfriend of 3 years cheated on him with a coworker, so he kicked her out and now she is begging for mercy after realizing she is homeless and broke. Now, let's get into today's stories. I was married and got divorced a few years ago. I found love with a friend I have known for years, who I confided in, who I can only see myself with. She had been in failed relationships, and together we began a new journey with our motto, and so together they built a life they loved. Together we decided that I, who had been in a dead-end job, would resign to embark on a new career. I have gone through specific training, going through a pretty arduous trainee process. This thing has been lengthy, with little income. She has been incredibly gracious in keeping the ship afloat, and especially in the last 6 months has carried us both. Eyeing the finish line by the end of the year, I have been eager to get the required licensing and build my book of business so that we could start to do all the things we had discussed. Big picture dreams. Side note, incredible sex life, more laughing than I've ever experienced. I asked her to marry me months ago, and she happily accepted, and we were really riding on a high. The lack of income had taken its toll. I had begun feeling very inadequate, wishing I could provide, give her a sense of security, etc. On multiple occasions, she had expressed feelings that she didn't feel secure and that she often felt alone during the process. I'll admit, I have felt like a shell of myself. I grew up instilled with a hard work ethic and have confidently assured her that this chapter will be but a blip on our shared journey. I have my faults. I know that I have not been the romantic I was prior to embarking on this career change. I also realize the immense pressure and stress this has put on her emotionally, mentally, and especially financially. So this brings us to last Wednesday, September 28th. She went to an industry event, a yearly thing hosted by an industry leader. I knew who she went with. Her company is small, consisting of the owner, a friend, and a neighbor of the street, her assistant, female, and a few technicians. One particular employee, who I refer to as Jake, has often flirted, who is married, but is apparently divorcing also due to infidelity on her part. My spouse often spoke of the guy as a good worker, but that he had maintained a puppy love with her. I had shaken the guy's hand. He knew who I was. I had voiced my concerns about his flirting, and I had felt secure in knowing nothing was there. Her boss was out of town, so she went to the event with her assistant and Jake. He was their sales manager and made $100,000 a year. She told me it wouldn't be a late night. She arrived at 5:30 and she thought she would head home at 8ish. 9:30 rolled around, and at that point, I was winding down. It was a weeknight, after all. We both permanently share our location. My training often had me going out of town, so the location sharing was just a means for us, both in case something happened. I saw she had left the venue and was nearby and in a public place. She was an adult. I didn't need to know everything, but I sent a text just to see. "How is it going up there?" She replied, "It's a great night," and that she would be home soon. She came home, and she was on cloud nine, saying the night with the vendors went well, and she was proud of how she represented her company. We went to bed with no issues. The next day, though, I noticed a marked difference in her, especially when she arrived back home from work. There was tension. I asked, "Is everything okay?" She replied yes, but I could tell she was lying. Friday, I had the day off because we were heading out of town to attend an engagement party for us, thrown by a family member of hers. Members of my family were coming down. I got a text afterward that she was running to pick up an order from Walmart for items for the party. My mind at that point had been racing, starting when she arrived home from that event. In an instance outside of my character, I opened her new MacBook and immediately went to her messages. That's when I saw it. She had met up with Jake. There was clearly something going on. I went back and continued reading further back for weeks. It was there, flirting, escalating in nature. My hands were shaking. There were texts after their meetup in the Walmart parking lot, discussing a kiss and her enjoying the feeling of being in his arms. I knew she was on her way home. I was shaking. I purposefully left the MacBook open while it was in my home office. It was there. I was outside composing myself when my watch notified me of her arrival through a Ring camera in her driveway. I waited a minute. She was in the house. Upon entering, it was clear she had walked through the front office and had discovered my discovery. She was cold. Without asking, she said, "Yes, it's real. It's happening." The next 30 to 45 minutes were a blur. I was shattered. She was stoic. She brought up the last 6 months and that it was merely a crush, but there were feelings discussed. She said that it was nothing, but I know what I saw. She was defensive though, and to her credit, I invaded her MacBook on my hunch. She said she was going to talk to me that evening. It was the night prior to our engagement party, where both families would be in attendance. She was my person. I immediately made the decision that I chose her, and she replied with the same. We even had our party. We even had sex over the weekend. Over the weekend, we had small discussions, and she was even vocally regretful. Monday rolled around, and we were back to reality. She was back at work. She stated that she needed to keep the status quo because they were a small company and the guy's efforts were needed at that stage in the company's existence. Since Friday's revelation, there were only 3 people that knew. This is already so long. It's late Thursday and I am broken. I have tried to maintain my cool. She says she loves me. She wants me, that I am her person. She's also very quick to want to move on. I feel like I am approaching a breaking point. Opie, please open your eyes. Do you really believe this woman? If you really need to fix this, the first and foremost thing for her to do will be to quit her job and go no contact with her AP. This is the minimum that she must do. She has to convince you that she is going to fix what she has destroyed through her actions and not through her words. You screwed up by not canceling the engagement party. What makes you think she's just not biding her time to shuffle you out of her life and replace you with him? That's where this is headed. Her behavior post-discovery shows that. She's not even pretending to be guilty. She's a cake eater at best, so of course, she wants to continue on like it never happened. She's not prepared to take the flak for breaking up with you. Do yourself a favor and cut her loose. Send her off to be with Jake. They deserve each other. You deserve much, much better. Now, let's get into today's second story. So my ex-girlfriend of 3 years recently cheated on me with her coworker. When I first met her, she had nothing. No job, barely any money, and no car. She was living with her mother until she got kicked out. This isn't the first time she's jumped from house to house with family members or friends. So I took her in to live with me at my mother's house. We've been dating for about 9 months when this happened, but we were already very close and we loved each other. I helped pick her up from school. I gave her a place to stay when she had no job or money. I fought every day at my job to get her to work at my job, and she eventually got hired. I helped teach her how to drive and was there when she got her license. I was there to bring her to her graduation when she really had no one. Eventually, when she was getting financially stable, she wanted to get a car, and I was the one who helped her. It wasn't the best car, but it got her from point A to point B. During our 3 years together, we obviously had arguments, but that's normal. She also was very bipolar and didn't use many manners with people, so sometimes I thought to myself that she was kind of different from me. During the relationship, there were a lot of arguments, and she was that person that didn't like the silent treatment or didn't like to see me ignore her when we needed to cool down. She would keep poking me and provoking me to keep arguing with her, and then get really emotional to the point where she threatened to kill herself if I left her. I will admit there was a time I gave her a 1-inch punch to the arm because I was dealing with a spine injury, and she took my phone away from me when I didn't want to argue. I just wanted to look at TikToks. She grabbed me and even dug her nails into my skin so I would let go of my phone. She pulled me and refused to give my phone back while I had so much pain in my spine and sciatic nerve. I wanted to just ignore the situation and let us cool down. Anyways, fast forward to the situation. She ended up getting depressed and upset about our job because it got so bad, and I agreed with her. So she ended up finding a new job, and I was proud of her. She would work overnight and come back home in the morning, but it started getting a little weird because while most couples don't care about not shaving their legs or making sure they're very clean and good looking at times when they're very close, she made sure she looked amazing and made sure to shave almost every day. Mind you, this was a warehouse job, so there was no point in looking amazing there. It had been a month since she started working there, and all of a sudden she started working every day overnight and always had some excuse or some story about why she was going to work early or coming home late. She looked guilty, but I trusted her so I didn't question it. That was until one day I started getting these gut feelings, like really bad, and I decided to check our tablet, and I saw messages of her talking to another guy in a very flirty way, even talking about how they couldn't wait to see each other later, cuddle with each other, and even going out on dates. When I found this out, my world just shattered, and I couldn't believe it. At the time, I was trying to contact her from work, but guess what? She wasn't at work. She was hanging out with him. So my dumb self at the time got upset and gave her PC a good punch, which broke some things out of anger and confusion. She laughed at me on the phone when I was heartbroken, thinking of all our memories, vacations, and our bucket lists. A week later, after kicking her out, she wanted to talk, and we did, but she showed no sympathy and kept denying the cheating and was saying that she needed to love herself right now and that the relationship was getting toxic. I hadn't been showing her the honeymoon stage anymore, and the reason why this all happened was because of me. But mind you, I always took her to sporting events, out to eat, to the movies, etc. Almost every day, even after having surgery. She ended up moving in with this person who was younger than me and had a sports car that she liked all of a sudden, who she barely knew for a month, and she told him that I was abusive and that I never loved her and that she lost weight because she didn't eat, but she never made anything for herself. It was always me making her food or making her smoothies. My mother lived with us to see all this and didn't like the way she treated me. My ex ended up telling me that this guy supposedly was there for her and showed her that he would help fix her and never hurt her. Not only me, but all her friends and our friends cut ties with her because they knew how she was and what she did was disrespectful to all of us. They also hadn't seen the proof. I eventually blocked her on everything and she still lies about things with this guy, even though there's proof. She even told him that I'm still currently messaging her at night when I'm the one who blocked her, and I have all the screenshots of her trying to get to me. So what do you guys think? Am I at fault here? Opie, you white-knighted her. This was an unhealthy relationship dynamic that was destined to fail. That doesn't mean you deserve to be cheated on, but it guaranteed the relationship was never as healthy as you perceive it. It creates a relationship imbalance. You can't save someone. She used you to get herself back on her feet and for refuge, then monkey branched to someone she thought would be better. I know it hurts, but just let her continue being toxic. She'll blow up this current relationship she's in and then probably start to spiral. You don't know it now, but you just pulled a huge leech off your back. Focus on surrounding yourself with great people that make you feel good about yourself. Thanks for taking the time to listen to today's story. Please subscribe if you haven't already. If there is a story you would like to share with me about your own situation or someone else's, then please do not hesitate to contact me. During the pandemic, my wife of 7 years was extremely frustrated with her hair. She, 35, had a short style with layers that required maintenance, otherwise it would grow to look like a mop on her head. I, 40, tried to help, but I am not a hairstylist, and I accidentally made it worse. She resented me for a few weeks, but we had to make up because we were stuck in the house together. I told her I could set some money aside for her to ask her hairstylist friend if he'd be willing to come to the house to do her hair. He was willing to while I was at work. My wife's job was shut down, but at least mine wasn't. I feel for the households that couldn't work at all. Anyway, I believe this guy was respectable because he was married with a 2-year-old kid. Besides that, we had security cameras. My wife knew about them, and I'd review them once a month. You can imagine my surprise when I noticed my wife go to where the living room camera was plugged in and attempted to unplug it. She wasn't looking at it, so she actually unplugged the wrong one. Then she answered the front door. It was the hairstylist. Now I was sitting forward in my desk chair. I couldn't believe I was watching something my wife didn't expect me to see. I wondered why she wanted to hide her actions, but I didn't have to wonder for long. The way they interacted seemed like close friends until he was done with her cut. She looked beautiful, and he moved her hair to the side, stroking her face. There was a moment shared between them, just before he went in for a kiss on the lips. I rubbed my eyes and rewound the video. This couldn't be. I was happily married to my wife for 7 years, and he was married as well. It became clear my wife kissed him back, and it didn't end there. They kept kissing, and my wife started to undress. She led him to the couch, and I couldn't look. I did look, even though I didn't want to, because I had to know if she said anything about them or why it was happening, and if it would happen again. She didn't, but she did say she'd be in touch with him. There were other gaps in the recordings, where she did unplug the camera. Something came over me. I was powered with the fuel of injustice. I printed pictures of him on top of her, a moment where his face was turned, so you could tell it was him. I put them all over his clothes store and took pictures of the store with them on it. Then I posted it all on his business website, his personal Facebook, and my wife's. When I got home, my wife had the front door barricaded like I was some kind of monster. I pushed my way in, and we had a screaming match. My adrenaline was through the roof, because we had never screamed like this before. She had never cheated on me before, to my knowledge. I asked her over and over what made her have sex with another married man. She kept saying she didn't need to tell me, so I just kept asking and telling her I dedicated my life to her, so the least she could do was tell me why this happened. She finally admitted they used to date, just before she met me, and since they were both tired of being stuck in the house with their spouse, they suddenly couldn't resist each other. The temptation of having someone new in a time so depressing was too great. My wife wasn't really apologetic or crying. She was just a little inconvenienced. I knew she didn't want to let her guard down or admit how bad this was. She wanted me to forgive her so everyone could go on with their lives. I told her that wasn't an option. She didn't want to destroy AP's marriage or her own, but neither of them thought through what they were doing. Maybe they thought no one would find out, but now it was all over the internet and his store. AP's wife divorced him, and he lost his business. I divorced my wife. When she was forced to leave our house, I made it a huge neighborhood party. While she loaded up a moving truck, I was grilling for the neighborhood and loud music was playing. All the people in attendance thought my idea was great because she deserved to be embarrassed, and a pat on the back for getting through the divorce and winning my house back. At that farewell party, I met a woman that just moved into the neighborhood, and she and I may or may not become a thing in the near future. All I know is I'm happy with how my life has turned out ever since. Opie, I am so sorry you married a sneaky woman that couldn't tell herself no and tried to hide the terrible dishonesty from you. I'm glad you found out what happened so you could put a stop to it. You didn't deserve to be cheated on. No one does. And if your wife was having that much of a problem with the relationship, she should have spoken to you honestly about it. I don't think either of them deserve to have a loyal spouse back at home or work while they did whatever they felt like. Your wife obviously planned this or thought something was going to happen because of trying to unplug the camera and the other gaps in the recording. This may not have been the first time she cheated on you. You did the right thing by leaving her. Thank you for sharing your story. Now, let's get into our second story for today. My wife, 38, was trying to sell her car when she decided to betray me and destroy my hopes for the future. We were married for 4 years and everything was good. I guess I can't say great because we always struggled a little financially. I, 40, had a job I really enjoyed that paid a little less than a more unpleasant or more demanding job. My wife always told me she just wanted me to be happy, and I told her the same. So she worked at her favorite clothing store. Not too terrible. At least we both had jobs and could pay the bills. But I think my wife wanted luxury. I think she dreamed of being spoiled like a movie star. That's part of the reason she decided to sell her car. We just paid it off after years of making huge payments, and I was pretty upset she didn't want to savor the time we had with it. She said she wanted to upgrade by selling it for cash, so she could put a huge down payment on the next vehicle. It made sense, but I didn't really like this idea. My wife wanted a nicer car, and her mind was set on it. So she invited a man over to our house to come see and test drive it, but she waited until I was at work and didn't tell me about it. It wasn't until 3 days after his test drive that my wife asked me to take better pictures of the car and interior. After I did, I plugged my phone into the computer we both used, and when the screen came on, there was a chat box opened. In the most recent messages, she thanked him for his generosity, said she really enjoyed being with him, and asked when he could come over again. In earlier messages, she talked about trying to sell her car for an upgrade and how her husband was at work so he could come drive it around a little. I couldn't believe how bad she was at covering her tracks. There was another window open that showed her bank account's recent transactions, and the most recent thing was a deposit from PayPal for $200. Not enough to buy a car, but perhaps enough to buy some time in bed with a pretty woman. I was fuming, but it was hard to really feel furious when I couldn't believe she would do this. I trusted her. We were married. I didn't want to believe it, but the evidence was right in front of me. I kept shaking my head and my face was stuck in a scowl. I didn't know how to handle this. I kept telling myself my wife had to have a conscious meaning I wouldn't have to wait long for her to come clean and break down in tears. I came home from work the next day and she was still acting like everything was fine. While she was in the shower, I got on the computer. This time the chat box and windows were closed, but all I had to do was click login on Messenger and I found their conversation. According to this, he was in our house and with my wife earlier that same day. I was really starting to feel the fury now. Not only had she failed to come clean or show any signs of remorse, but she brought him over and did it again. I didn't know it was possible to feel the level of anger I felt at that moment. I printed screenshots of the chat, closed the chat box, and put them in my nightstand just before my wife came out of the shower. I think she realized she hadn't had sex with me in a week, and I was probably expecting it, otherwise I might get suspicious. She was already naked, so she got into bed with me and started getting really close. I was stiff as a board, but not the important part. I couldn't lay with her, and I couldn't keep pretending the way she was. I jumped out of bed, whipped open the drawer, and slapped the papers down on the bed with her. I screamed at the top of my lungs to ask what this was. She jumped out of her skin and started breathing rapidly. While trembling, she looked at the pages, then back to me. She said nothing. I yelled again, so she squeaked that she was sorry. She offered no defense. She was just terrified and wanted me to feel bad for scaring her. I said whatever happens from this point forward is what she brought on herself, so if she doesn't like it, she needs to rethink her actions. I gathered some essentials, the paper evidence and the keys to the car she was trying to sell because I helped her pay it off. I went to my dad's house, who was 77 years old at this point, and he was just happy I was there to stay for a while. I didn't tell him what was going on as I filed for divorce. My supporters were my friends from work and the people who shared my passion with me. My wife wasn't able to sell or use the car since I took the keys, and when the divorce was final, it was awarded to me, and she had to move out. Infidelity screws a lot of people over, but I'm glad she didn't get out of the consequences. There were several times when she called me really upset and hating herself because she had a moment of clarity and saw what a piece of crap she was for doing that to me. She's had trouble connecting with anyone, even as friends, because she told me she feels like they can tell she doesn't know who she is anymore. Sometimes I wonder what would have happened if I never saw the chat, and that scared the heck out of me. I've started going to counseling. At least I know that I'll know when I'm ready to start dating. I started going to the gym to ease my stress, and before this, I was not a well-built person. That's another positive outcome. I'm in the best shape of my life. Opie, you really went through something traumatic. I wish I knew why your wife did what she did, but if I had to guess, it was because she had an unreasonably high sense of importance. She thought she could get away with something that would only benefit her. I'm sorry she didn't see how despicable she was by sleeping with a man on the roost of buying a car. It sounds like she did finally start to see just how low she was, and maybe that'll be what it takes for her to become a better person. Think about others before yourself and only do what you'd want your mother to know about. And if your mother isn't a good enough example, find someone or something that is. There will always be a ripple effect from what you choose to do, so think it through carefully and you'll lead a good life. I wish you nothing but the very best of luck. Thank you all for taking the time to listen to today's stories. If you enjoyed listening, please feel free to like and subscribe if you haven't already. Also, comment below with your thoughts on what happened. Cake? No need for it. Go ahead and toss it out. That's what my husband said on my birthday and had the audacity to go on a trip with his mistress. I had hoped this would be our last chance, but it seems I was mistaken. I really don't think I can continue living with you anymore. Understood. In that case, I'll do as you said. Throw out the cake and I'll throw out something else that's important to you as well. And then prepare yourself, because I'm going to throw out thing that is most unnecessary to me. My name is Sarah. I'm a 28-year-old office worker. My husband Bob also works in an office, although it's a different company. We don't have any children. Bob and I met a year ago. It was at a party held by a senior colleague from work. I'm rather plain, a bit overweight, introverted, and gloomy, and my hobby is reading comic books, an indoor type of person. So I was invited to the party only to make up the numbers. Also, I knew this, so I didn't join the conversation much and was just drinking my beverage at the edge of the table. Still, out of all the participants there, Bob, who was the most handsome, outgoing, and good at conversing, for some reason, actively started talking to me. Bob enjoys traveling and collecting vintage vinyl records. And he told me stories about his travels and old music, which were really interesting. When it was time to go home, he asked for my contact details. And though I was surprised, we exchanged our contact information on Facebook. And the very next day, he messaged me, "I'd like to meet up, just the two of us next time." I was so surprised that at first, I wondered if this was some kind of punishment game, or if he was going to try to sell me something. But I was happy, so I agreed. And we had a meal together on a later date. After that, he frequently asked me out. And after a few dates, he confessed his feelings for me. I had never had a boyfriend in my life before, so I was overjoyed at my first ever confession and accepted it. And then, about 3 months after we started dating, he proposed, and we got married. I thought it was like a dream that someone as ordinary and boring as me could marry such a wonderful person. And I believed that a happy life was about to start. But as soon as we got married, Bob's attitude completely changed. When we were dating, he was very kind. But once we got married, he started pushing all the household chores on me and would just laze around watching TV or listening to records in his room when he got back from work. I don't know if it's because the volume of the records is loud, but when I call out, "Dinner's ready," he doesn't seem to hear me and often doesn't come right away, which irritates me. On his days off, he leaves me alone and goes out to play, saying he has plans with friends or colleagues from work. When I say, "Please help me with the household chores a little," he replies, "I'm working, you know." When I tell him, "I'm working too, I'd appreciate it if you could at least help with the household chores on your days off," he says, "I'm busy even on my days off because I have to hang out with my friends, unlike you, who don't have many friends, because you're so gloomy." Ain't that last remark just awful? Sure, I'm not exactly Miss Social Butterfly due to my personality, I get it, but to say such things to my face, that's just plain rude, ain't it? That was what I thought, but I didn't want to start a fight, so I kept it to myself. Gradually, Bob started nitpicking about the way I cook and clean, and before long, he started hurling insults like, "You should be grateful that a great guy like me even bothered to marry a plain and overweight woman like you." I thought a real gentleman wouldn't say such things to his wife, and would also help with housework. In fact, if he's got issues with the way I clean, I wish he'd at least clean his own room. The only thing he takes care of is his record collection. Also, I love reading comic books, and I've collected quite a few over the years. But one day, I found that all the comic books I had in my room had vanished. I asked Bob, suspecting the worst, and he said, "Oh, those? They were in the way, so I threw them out." I can't believe it. Those were important to me. Some of them were even out of print. Hard to get. I protested, but he just said, "Well, your comic books were starting to overflow from your room into the living room. Besides, you should outgrow this childish hobby of reading comic books." How dare he criticize my hobbies? Not to mention, throwing away my stuff without even asking me? Unforgivable. If he's going to be this awful and verbally abusive, why did he even marry me? Probably Bob just wanted a free housekeeper, I guess. And when he met me at a party and saw that I was quiet and submissive, he must have thought I was an easy target. Realizing this, I've spent many nights crying in bed. It's manageable now, but if we were to have kids, I shudder to think what the future might hold. One day, a friend told me she saw Bob walking arm in arm with a woman who wasn't me in the hotel district. Just yesterday, he said he was going out to meet a friend. I was under the impression that this friend was a man. What does it mean he was meeting a woman? Could he be cheating? With these suspicions, I hired a private investigator. As expected, it turned out that Bob was cheating on me. The other woman was a junior colleague from his office, a woman named Susan. He had been cheating on me since we got married. Whenever he said he was going out to meet friends or colleagues, it was mostly dates with Susan. How dare he dump all the housework on me and then play around? I'm going to divorce him, I thought, and even consulted a lawyer. But even so, I couldn't completely hate Bob, who allowed even a plain and boring woman like me to dream a little about marriage. So, I decided to make one last bet. This coming Saturday is my birthday. If Bob would celebrate the day with me, I thought I would hold off on the divorce. At dinner, I said to Bob, "Bob, do you remember what's coming up this Saturday?" "Huh? Saturday? Is there something special going on?" I was a little shocked to realize that he had completely forgotten. At this point, my hopes were dashed again, but I continued the conversation. "It's my birthday." "Oh, yeah, now that you mention it. Well, it falls on a day off this year, so I was thinking of getting a cake and having it together." You promise, right? Absolutely do not make any other plans, okay? With a somewhat praying feeling, Sarah said this to Bob, who seemed reluctant. And then it was the Friday before her birthday. During dinner, Bob said, I have a business trip tomorrow. What? Tomorrow is my birthday, and we promised to eat cake together. I've already made a reservation. When I said that, he said, well, it's work. I can't help it. Show some understanding for your husband's work. Anyway, I'm going on a business trip tomorrow. It's for 2 days and one night, so I'll be back on Sunday evening. Please pack for me. Well, what about the cake I reserved? When I asked, just throw it away if you don't need it, he casually said, what is that? Despite it being my special birthday and going through the trouble of reserving a cake, he so nonchalantly said to throw it away. Is it really a business trip? Feeling suspicious, I checked his smartphone while Bob was in the shower. There, I found his exchanges with his mistress. Shall we go somewhere on a trip this Saturday for 2 days and one night? Sounds good. I want to go camping. How about it? Then I'll make a reservation at a lodge. Are you sure your wife hasn't found out? Are you okay? I'm okay. She's oblivious. Actually, this Saturday is Sarah's birthday. She said let's celebrate together, but it's a hassle. I don't want her to start demanding gifts and stuff, so I thought I'd go on a trip with you. Wow, that's terrible. Your wife must be so sad. I almost cried from the shock, but somehow managed to hold back and took a screenshot of their conversation on my smartphone. I didn't particularly want gifts or anything. If you had simply agreed to eat cake with me, I would have still had a glimmer of belief that you might care about me a bit. Seeing the messages between you and your mistress shattered that last bit of hope. Enough. I'm done with it. Then, on my birthday, Bob so audaciously demanding at the front door. Well, I'm heading out. While I'm on a business trip, clean my room for me. Okay. By the way, I'm going to pick up the cake we reserved today. You still want me to throw away your share of the cake, right? You're nagging. I said it's fine. Understood. I'll clean your room and I'll throw away anything that I think you don't need anymore. That's okay with you, right? Yeah, it's fine. I'm heading out now. With that, Bob left for what he claimed to be a business trip, but was in reality a trip with his mistress. Remember when I asked, is it okay if I throw away anything I think you don't need? And you said, yeah, it's fine. I recorded our conversation on a voice recorder, so there's no taking it back now. Well, once inside Bob's room, I vacuumed and wiped the windows. Next, I disposed of the unwanted items, old clothes, piles of stationery, and the record collection that Bob had been amassing. It took quite a bit of money and effort to collect those records, I recall. I packed up all these items and put them in the storeroom. Then, I placed the filled-out divorce papers on the living room table and left the house. Now, it's my birthday after all. I'm going to enjoy it just as I like. First, I went to pick up the reserved cake. After that, I booked a room in a luxury hotel I had always wanted to visit and ate the cake in my hotel room. Bob said, throw it away, but I couldn't bring myself to waste food, so I ate both portions. It was delicious, but I might gain weight again, so I really need to start dieting. I then went shopping in the nearby stores and took a stroll by the sea close by. I had spent my days off doing housework until now, so this kind of leisure day was a first in a long time. Just as I was thinking about this, I received a call from Bob on Sunday night. Honestly, I didn't want to answer, but I had no choice. Hello. Hey, where the heck are you? I got back from my business trip, and you're not home, and there's no dinner ready. How annoying. He's ruining the relaxing ambience of my luxury hotel stay. Well, I'm staying in a hotel for a bit for reasons. There's a lovely sea nearby. Would you like me to send you a picture? What are you talking about? I don't care about that. Why are you in a hotel? Where's my dinner? Also, I found divorce papers. What's going on? What's going on? Well, if there are divorce papers, you should know what to do, right? Are you planning to make a paper airplane with it? You can't be that stupid. Just sign your name on it and take it to the city hall. So, you want a divorce? That's right. Honestly, I'm sick and tired of it. Bob just leaves me alone to play on his day off, and he never helps me with the household chores. From the very beginning, the first thing he does when he calls me is get mad because I haven't prepared dinner. I thought it was unbelievable. What's up with that? And when I looked in the room, my collection of records was gone. What happened? Oh, I threw away the records. As I say that, Bob's voice raises even higher. You threw them away? Are you kidding me? Why? You knew I cherished those. But Bob, you told me before your business trip that I could throw away anything I deemed unnecessary. You said it was okay, so I did. I even have our conversation recorded. Wanna listen? And besides, you also threw away my beloved comics, didn't you? That's. Anyway, don't just drop divorce papers on me and leave. I get it. Then let's meet and talk for once. And so, a few days later, honestly, I didn't want to see Bob anymore. But I had no choice but to have a discussion at the lawyer's office. Bob, whom I hadn't seen in several days, was in shabby clothes and had unkempt hair. I was the one who used to iron his clothes. I think the conditioner was about to run out. Maybe that's why his hair was so messy. But he should be able to buy conditioner by himself, I think. Seeing Bob in such a sloppy state, I wonder why I ever liked such a person. I'm glad. I had worried about how I would feel if I no longer wanted to divorce after seeing Bob again. But it seems that that was needless worry. And then the discussion began. I'll say this first. I haven't changed my mind about wanting to divorce. This is the amount I want as alimony. Seeing the amount I suggested, Bob screamed, $30 million? Sarah, that's way too much. Just because I didn't help with the housework? Just because he didn't help with the housework? What is this man talking about? That's not all. You've also constantly insulted me, calling me fat and plain. And worst of all, this. Saying that, I pulled out evidence of infidelity that I had researched at the detective agency. I also show him the screenshot of our smartphone conversation at that time. You've been cheating since we got married. Even on my birthday. Lying about a business trip to go on a vacation with your mistress? Considering all this, $30 million is still not enough. So, Sarah, did you know about the affair? Looking at the photos, Bob turns pale. Yes. Did you think I didn't notice because I'm dense? Don't make fun of me. And you threw away my beloved comics, remember? But that's because you threw away my records. Oh, the records? I lied about throwing them away. Surprised Bob, I explain. Actually, I thought about throwing them away. But I felt it would be too cruel. And I didn't want to be held responsible for throwing them away, so I didn't. The records are stored in the back of the storeroom. What? Seeing Bob's relieved face, I say, why are you looking so relieved? The fact that you threw away my comics hasn't changed, so you should compensate for that. And about the cake, you said throw it away? But I couldn't disrespect food, so I ate both portions. So, you didn't throw away anything? When Bob sought confirmation, I told him with a chuckle, there's no need for that. I declared to you, I discard anything I don't need. And I've done just that. Well, actually, I'm about to do it. Huh. Bob seemed unable to comprehend. With a deeper smile, I told him you. Yes, you. You're the thing I need the least. I'm going to get rid of you completely. Once you understand that, please divorce. There's no way the alimony will be less than this amount. If you argue, it'll be higher. When I said this, Bob pleaded, I'm sorry. I won't cheat anymore. And I'll help with the housework because you're here. Because I'm here? What? So you can go on dates with your mistress without any worry, dumping the chores on me during your days off? No, that's not it. Bob babbled, no matter what you say, I intend to divorce. I don't like holding on to trash because I'm a neat freak. I retorted. After I said that, Bob fell apart, stammering, I'm trash? His expression at that moment was priceless. Afterwards, we divorced. Since the divorce, all communication has been through our lawyer. So I haven't seen Bob since. However, according to stories my lawyer shared, Bob, having left all the housework to me, had no domestic skills. He briefly cohabited with Susan, but apparently she too couldn't do housework. Their place quickly became a mess. Their diet was all over the place because they were constantly eating out. Bob started gaining weight, and his once handsome face now looks quite regrettable. It seems Susan broke up with Bob and moved on to another job. Furthermore, it became gossip at work that Bob and Susan were having an affair, causing him discomfort. But he can't quit because the alimony I requested is substantial. I've switched jobs and moved, and now I'm enjoying living alone. I'm not run ragged by housework like before. No one gives me a hard time, and I'm happy. Plus, maybe because I'm not stressed anymore, my face is brighter, and I've been told I look a little thinner. If I continue to lose weight, even though I don't plan to see him again, I might make Bob Please help me. I can't take it anymore. I called my husband, Dominic, while he was on a business trip. I told him that my mother-in-law has bullied me every single day and that I couldn't take it anymore, which is why I called for help. But, you know that I'm working right now. You do know that, right? I could hear how irritated Dominic was over the phone, and I got a little nervous. As my wife, you're supposed to be patient and endure all the difficulties. So, to be honest, if you're not even aware that you have to be patient or endure such difficulties, then you're not fit to be my wife at all. If you ever call me again just for this, I will not allow you to call me anymore. All right? Don't you dare bother me about these petty things again. And just listen to what my mother has to say, that's all. Just saying that, Dominic hung up on me without even hearing what I needed to say. I just only wanted him to help me. I cried and dialed again, but my husband never picked up. Oh, finally I see. This man is never going to help me, huh? I closed my eyes while I cried. My name is Bella. I got married to my husband, Dominic, 3 years ago. Dominic was a salesman at the company I had joined as a new employee, and as his direct subordinate, he had taught me many things about the work and how the company ran. At the time, I found him wonderful to work with, so when he began to approach me, I felt really happy. We ended up dating less than a year after I joined the company, and in the winter of my second year at the company, Dominic had proposed. I had actually intended to continue working after we got married, but Dominic refused that I continue working at the company. A husband is supposed to make things easy for his wife. Besides, it would be more convenient for us if we were thinking about having kids and the future. I could understand his point of view, but I also had my own reasons for wanting to work. I needed to be prepared to give up the career I had built over the years, and above all, I was proud of my current job. In the end, however, my opinion did not go through. I was told to quit work, and I was told to leave the company before I began my third year at the company. Dominic and I had talked about many things before we got married, but the thing he was most concerned about was the house. Both of us had been living alone, but Dominic suggested that we move into a new house when we got married. I'll be responsible for getting our house, so please just terminate the contract for the place that you're living in right now. We've already got the property, so we can move there soon enough. When I asked him questions about what kind of house it was, Dominic never told me anything about it or the details of the house. He said it was a surprise, but for me, I was worried about it. I was worried about what kind of house we would move into, but he had no hesitation in terminating the contract on the place where he lives currently, so I also terminated the contract for my place too. And that was how I was brought into Dominic's parents' house. I complained to Dominic about it, but he just replied in a grumpy manner. My mom has been living on her own ever since my dad passed away a few years ago. Don't you feel sorry for her? She's your husband's family, so don't get so depressed about it. Even so, wouldn't it be nice to have a word about it beforehand? You should take into consideration about me too. What the heck? You don't want to live together with my family that much? I've asked a lot of people around me, and no one dislikes the idea as much as you do. So it seems like you're the one who has a bad personality, huh? As Dominic said that, he shook his head as if to say that I was the one who was insane. I had so many things I wanted to say back to him, but I already had no job to go back to and no home, so I didn't have enough power to just refuse and leave. Thus, I began my life with my mother-in-law, Abby. Well, actually, living with Abby was a wonderful experience. I often hear stories about wives who were harassed by their husbands' mothers, and I was afraid that Abby would bully me, but she never did that. In fact, I was the one being taken care of more by Abby than me taking care of Abby. I am so happy that a nice girl like you married my son, and I'm so glad that you're going to live with us. I've been so lonely by myself. Thank you. Abby had treated me like her real daughter. She helps me with my share of the house chores, and she's really good at baking and has taught me all kinds of recipes. Oh, it's like I'm having a real daughter. For the first time in a long time, I feel like I'm having fun every day. Like this, Abby has never forgotten to thank me. Seeing this wonderful side of Abby, I felt really bad for not wanting to live with her in the beginning. After 3 years of living with Abby, I felt it was time for Dominic and I to move on to the next step, to have a baby. If I got pregnant, Abby would definitely help me, so I wouldn't have to worry. Besides, I wanted to make Abby happy by showing her the face of her grandchild as soon as possible. Dominic, honey, don't you think it's time to start thinking about having a baby soon? When I asked Dominic, he stared at me as if he had seen something he didn't like. If you really feel that way, why don't you try your best to be attractive more? We've been spending so much time together lately that I haven't been that attracted to you, and I haven't been looking at you as a woman. I was speechless when he said that to me. Oh, well, I am sorry. I'll do my best, so you should be supportive too, Dominic. You would want to show your own mother the face of her grandchild as soon as possible, wouldn't you? Then, Dominic thought for a moment and answered as if he was a little annoyed. I'm tired from work today. Let's talk tomorrow. Dominic's nonchalant attitude continued, and he did not seem to be giving the matter any serious thought. He was also coming home extremely late these days. Even though he was a salesman, he was not supposed to work that late, but recently, he was coming home very late around midnight. Hey, aren't you coming home very late these days? With your job, there is no work that requires you to stay that late, is there? Oh, shut up. You've only been in the company for a few years, so what do you know about my work? I go home tired. You can't even be grateful for what I do around here. This is how Dominic has been lately. It feels like a long time ago when we used to get along well with each other. I'm sure that if I let things continue like this, our marriage will collapse someday. But Dominic doesn't seem to have the supportive feelings to even be there for me. Not knowing what to do, I decided to talk to Abby about what has been happening. She took my feelings into consideration and comforted me with kind words. Yes, then let's do this. Let's have Dominic worry about you and maybe he'll be more serious. And what she suggested was that I lie to Dominic and tell him that Abby was bullying me badly. Oh, I can't do that. I can't make you, who has always been so good to me, a bad person. I am happy enough that you feel that way, Bella. Besides, I want to see my grandchild's face as soon as possible, so I want you guys to have a good relationship as a husband and wife. Abby gently persuaded me to go through with the plan to get Dominic worried about me. Dominic was off work that day, but he had gone for a drive to get away from distractions and to get refreshed. I called him at a time when he would be eating lunch, and he answered the phone as if he was a little irritated. What is it? I'm driving and feeling all good, but then you call me and ruin these goodbyes. Now you're just gonna spoil the fun. Hey, I actually have something to say that I don't feel comfortable talking to you about at home. Actually, Abby is harassing me very badly. I continued the conversation, acting like I was whispering so people wouldn't hear me. Next to me, Abby was having her hand over her mouth, desperately trying not to burst out laughing. I was looking forward to seeing how my husband would react, but what came out of his mouth were just so shocking to hear. You're the wife, so you're supposed to put up with it. You're saying that my mom is harassing you, but I think that it's partially your fault for being so useless too, don't you think? You don't even work anyway. You just stay at home, so you at least should put up with it. Also, my mom must be going through menopause, and maybe everything you do is getting on her nerves, you know? The only thing mom's looking forward to is probably harassing you, so just let her do it. Dominic laughed it off as he said this, and this just left me speechless. Plus, I could hear a woman's voice in the background of our phone call. The only thing that your wife is worth for is for her to take care of your old mother. I heard those words just before I hung up the phone. As I hung up the phone, Abby and I looked at each other. The conversation I had with Dominic was on speaker so that Abby could hear everything we were saying. I can't believe Dominic would say those awful things about you, Bella. I can't believe Dominic would say such thing about you, Abby. Then we both shouted, "That's absolutely unacceptable," and the woman's voice we heard over the phone was clearly talking to Dominic. When Dominic left this morning, he was saying that he was going for a relaxing drive all day alone, but I never thought that he was there with another woman. I also suspected him of cheating on me, but it's not like he's going to tell me the truth when I question him. I discussed with Abby and decided to go through with pretending of not knowing until we found any sort of proof. A few days later, Dominic suddenly left the house, saying he had to go on a business trip. I'll be gone for a few days, so please take care of my mom and the house for me. Don't cry if my mom harasses you. Dominic left the house with a smile on his face, and I could see that this man was not going to the business trip for work. When I tried to call him at night or other times, he wouldn't answer his phone, and when I sent him a message, he wouldn't reply. It seems that he doesn't intend to respond to me at all during his business trip. Taking advantage of this, Abby and I immediately contacted an investigator to investigate about Dominic's affair. The results of the investigation came out immediately, and our theory was right, and it seemed that he was not very good at hiding his affair, and many photos were taken of him getting along with his mistress in different places. All of these photos were taken during this business trip. When my mother-in-law and I saw the photos of Dominic and his mistress, we could do nothing but just sigh. I don't remember raising him to be that much of a scumbag. I'm so disappointed in that boy. More than the affair, I was angry at Dominic for making Abby feel that way, so I immediately called him. I thought he wouldn't answer anyway, but this time, he happened to answer. Dominic, what are you doing now? Aren't you supposed to be at work? I accused him in a pretty direct way, and Dominic yelled back at me, being all surprised. Of course I'm doing work. I went out of my way to pick up the phone in the midst of my busy schedule. You're such a jerk. Because you're not being inconsiderate like that. My mom harasses you. Say any more nonsense, and I'll tell on you to my mom too. Dominic was still thinking that Abby was bullying me, even though it was a big fat lie. He probably thinks that if he is picking on his wife, Abby would be on his side. But Abby herself was standing next to me, red-faced and angry with Dominic. Dominic, who didn't know about this, was just laughing away, saying terrible things to me. You accused me of having an affair, but aren't you doing that because, actually, you're having an affair and you get worried, right? I wonder who you're with now, Bella. Are you actually with a guy or something? Well, I know that it's not possible though. You're not that attractive as a woman, because after all, women are all about their charms. You need to learn something about that. Behind Dominic's laughter, I could hear a woman laughing. With everything Dominic has been saying to me, I got so hurt that I was just about to cry. Dominic, How did you become such a lousy human being? Suddenly, startled by his mother's voice, Dominic jumped up. You're together with Bella? Why? I thought you two didn't get along. Unlike you, how can I be on bad terms with such a nice girl? I can't believe you're cheating on Bella and making her so sad like this. Wait, Mom. First of all, I don't understand what you mean by me cheating on Bella. Bella must have told you lies anyways. I'm on a business trip and this is for work. Please believe me. Then, is it okay if we contact the company about it? And immediately, Dominic began to panic even more. To the company, he must have taken a leave for the vacation trip. The business trip was a lie from the very beginning. I can no longer consider a man like you as my son. My love for you as your mother is completely gone. There is no place for you here, and you do not have to come back here anymore. Saying that, Abby hung up the phone. As I froze at Abby's yelling, which I had never heard from her before, she gave me her usual gentle smile. Well, let's get ready, shall we? We then immediately began to prepare and leave the house. I sent my important things to my parents' house for now and left only the signed divorce papers onto the table. Abby apparently owned a vacation home which Dominic didn't know about, and I hired a mover to move everything, including the furniture, from there that day. I'm giving this house away. That boy will be spoiled as long as he knows that I am here. I have to make sure he gets a good punishment for the mistakes he made. Abby said this with a smile and also had people to replace the locks on the house. A few days later, Dominic finally came home and was at a loss when he tried to enter the house. He could not get in touch with Abby and I either, and he was forced to sleep in a small hotel for a while. Even when he went back to work, he never got a break. We had reported his affair to Dominic's company as well. When his boss saw the photos of Dominic's affair, he immediately turned pale. Actually, the woman with whom Dominic was having an affair was apparently the daughter of the president of one of their clients. Knowing that the whole company knows, Dominic confessed about his affair. He was immediately sent to apologize and see their client, but there was no way he would be forgiven. It was a major company, but the contract they had were terminated because of what had happened, and that caused tremendous damage to Dominic's company. Everyone at work found out about Dominic's affair, and he resigned a few days later, having lost his place in the company. The last time I saw him was when we were communicating through the lawyer for a divorce and alimony due to his affair. Seeing Dominic becoming so depressed, I realized that if you do the wrong thing, you will always get hurt. I also filed a claim for alimony with Dominic's mistress, and Dominic was also being sued from his mistress. The mistress had also been disowned by her parents and kicked out of their house, so that's why she was suing Dominic. Dominic will have to deal with them now, and he will continue to have a hard time, but I don't really care what happens to him now. Dominic and I are divorced now, but I still kept in touch with Abby. Her vacation home was actually located near my parents' house. I would occasionally visit her, and we would eat sweets that Abby made and cashed up with each other. It was a difficult few years, but now that I am having a good time with Abby, I feel that it was all a good learning experience for me. Thank you for watching until the end. Please subscribe to our channel. We hope to see